Welcome everybody. This is David Vicknair, and I'm here with my law partner Brad Scott, and this is our first episode of the Overruled podcast. It's Overruled with Scott Vicknair. A little bit about what we hope to accomplish with this podcast, and we'll be bringing our listeners a couple times a month. The theme of the podcast is going to be lessons in business, law, and in leadership. And what Brad and I, or at least what I'm hoping to accomplish, and Brad will share his goals and what he hopes to do with the show is to, on a bi-weekly basis, kind of with our clients, prospective clients and friends of the firm, be able to talk to them about what we're doing here at the firm, but also kind of like give some commentary on hot topics going on, both from a professional and personal growth standpoint. Share some of our experiences with the law and in business and what we have going on in the firm. But more importantly, and I think what I'm more excited about than anything, is bringing some guests on from our professional experience and connections who are making a dent in the world, making some changes in the world in small but beneficial ways in our local community and in society at large, who we already have relationships with. People who own construction companies, who are real estate developers, different businesses, but also, of course, bringing to our guests some commentary and life lessons from judges and lawyers and people who we have connections to that can kind of help our listeners and our client base and people who are thinking about hiring us or curious about what law firms do, learn a little bit about what we do and what the people connected to us do.
Look, this is something exciting. We've been trying to get this done for quite a while now, and finally it's coming to fruition. And these are the conversations that we have at lunch all the time. And these are the people we have lunch conversations with. These are people out there doing things and accomplishing things, having success. And really just to kind of share those conversations that we get to have every day with these people and how they get things done and how they've gotten to where they've gotten. What are the tricks? What are the hacks? What are the secrets? What are the little things they do every day to get where they've been? Yeah.
And, you and I talk about it all the time. It's from our perspective in managing the firm, and as the firm grows and we add employees and we expand into new practice areas and in different locations geographically, we're in these organizations and connected to different professionals who kind of talk about professional growth, the keys to that growth, talk about how to expand and learn new things. And you and I are always talking about that and taking notes and connecting with those same key individuals. Some of them may listen to this podcast at some point. Hopefully some will be guests. But, this show is kind of an opportunity, I think, for us to kind of share that with our listener base and really just talk to interesting people who I think really, from our perspective, me at least, I think you probably agree, I think we're going to learn a lot from doing this show.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Jim Rohn, the motivational speaker, says, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with the most. And this is a way of like bringing in more people and kind of integrating them into your system and getting access to them, other people that you probably wouldn't meet or see otherwise, that we get to sit down and talk and pick their brains with.
Absolutely.
So it really helps everybody just to, move forward and get better at what they're doing.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about it. As a general format, I think that most of the shows we're going to kind of share each of our hot topics of the week, which isn't necessarily going to be law related. It can be something related to business or personal development, but that each of us will be researching and kind of sharing, like, this is our one hot topic of the week before we bring our guest on for that week and kind of have a good in-depth intellectual discussion with each guest. And I think that as a part of that process, besides us learning, our guests are going to learn a lot too. Yes, and we're going to have some fun. We're going to have
hopefully.
Anywho, so that's our goals for the show. And I know that we're excited to do it. Like you said, we've been working on getting this launched for a minute now. And I'm just going to jump into our first hot topic of the week. And mine is kind of complicated, but kind of simple at the same time. Mine is LeBron James breaking the scoring record. And I'm not, I don't want to jump into the MJ LeBron controversy because that's not the point of this topic. I guess I only say that to say I'm not a huge LeBron fan from the standpoint that I think it's undisputed that Michael Jordan's the greatest NBA basketball player of all time. But aside from that, I respect LeBron because of how much he's accomplished.
It's a milestone.
100%. In 20 some odd years in the NBA, and people, I think, take for granted how difficult what he's done is.
It's not accidental that somebody makes that type of record and breaks that kind of record. They got to put a lot of work into it.
That's right. People think I have seen a lot of commentary that this was what was expected of him just because he was a phenom coming out of high school. But I think that's really not true. I think you could go through professional sports and not just sports, any type of thing where you see these phenoms who come out and are supposed to be so good at something. And there's a lot of busts in there. And there's no question that LeBron has performed at a high level for 20-some years now. Mm-hmm. And I think in reading a lot of his commentary and other people's commentary about his accomplishment in breaking the all-time NBA scoring record from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he really talked about focusing on or people have talked about how he has focused on being so good at this for so long, and the necessary discipline and hard work that it takes over a sustained period of time to accomplish a goal like this.
And there's a difference between talent and hard work. Talent will only get you so far. And in this situation, he was gifted with a lot of talent coming out of high school. But if they don't follow that up with hard work, doing the things every day that other people don't want to do, showing up for the early practices and things of that nature, that talent's only going to take you so far. So he's a good example of somebody who put in the hours and put in the time and put in the repetitions, and the success follows it.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. If you look at what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said, and he was quoted in this Daily Mail piece, he said that he's very glad that his role is finished, which I found to be interesting. But he said, LeBron worked real hard for it. He deserves it. He spent his entire adult life as a premier athlete and done an excellent job at it. And he also mentioned, people forget the amount of money that LeBron contributed to sending an entire community to receive a college education. And I think some people would say, well, that's easy for him because he has a lot of money, but he can do whatever he wants with his money. Yes. He chose to reinvest it in kids' education. I think that's something for him to really be applauded about.
Absolutely. I mean, too often you see these people who do have success, but they don't give back and help enhance other people to reach where they've gotten to. And that's, that in itself is something I really admire him for, especially that story.
Yeah, the other thing with him, Brad, that was the real reason I kind of latched onto this story, if I'm going to be honest, is another Daily Mail piece. It's no secret, I guess. One of my close friends got me to read Shoe Dog, which is the story of Nike written by Phil Knight, who started Nike. And it quickly became a top 5 book of mine. I love it. I laugh thinking about it because it's like if you didn't know that the story about Nike was true, you would believe it was not an actual story.
Yes.
Or real life, because it's almost unbelievable that Nike came about the way it came about and how Phil Knight navigated a million different things that would have stopped most ordinary people from achieving what he's achieved by starting selling shoes out of the trunk of a car in Oregon. But this Daily Mail piece, and there was a lot of stuff on social media about Phil Knight, because he obviously signed LeBron to a 7-year deal back in 2003 when he was a high school phenom with Nike. You and I were chatting about it earlier. Everybody now is like, oh, well, of course he signed LeBron a deal with Nike.
It's obvious today when you're looking back, but back then it was a big risk for him.
A huge risk. Even at the time, though, obviously in 2003, at that point, Nike was a substantial entity and they could afford to invest in athlete promotions. But, they're rolling the dice.
It's basic risk-reward trade-off. Lots of things in life are like that.
100%. So, and there's a lot of pieces to this story about Phil Knight, which just really got me intellectually interested in it from a growth and societal standpoint. One of them being that a bunch of the memes were that he was sitting courtside amongst all these people who all have their cell phones up, and they're not even enjoying the moment.
Not in the moment.
Yeah, not in the moment. Not enjoying being there, watching that they are one of the 20,000 people who will be ever say that they were there when LeBron broke the NBA scoring record. And he's just sitting back with his hands clasped, and he's just with a smirk on his face, taking it all in around a sea of people with their iPhones up. And to me, it was this guy's really got it figured out on so many different levels. No crap that he started Nike, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's focused on really enjoying the moment, on, in some ways, the moment of his risk in investing in LeBron back in 2003 paying off, but really... and if you look at his commentary after, both he and LeBron kind of had made some comments in this Daily Mail piece about why he was there, and LeBron saying how happy he was there when they embraced afterwards. And so it wasn't, I think, for Phil Knight just a time to be excited about his investment paying off. More of a, I think in his, as he explains, sometimes these athletes that he invests in become family.
It's a proud moment for him. It's like a child watching him through that journey and seeing it go from his high school career to him breaking the all-time scoring record.
Right.
It's quite a journey for anybody.
No doubt. And so I just thought that was neat, the angle of it, that he's not on his smartphone. But in some ways, from a business standpoint, I mean, I understand and relate to the risk that Phil Knight and Nike take when they invest in these athletes before they're even proven. You could go through a list of people that he invested in, that were not sure bets, that were risks, and that have paid off for Nike. But that's, a part of business. Like, if you're not willing to take educated guesses and risk to succeed, like we always joke about, you can't have the success if you're not willing to take the risk.
Correct.
And I did find it interesting. Some other athletes who have been longtime Nike promoters were certainly commenting on this. One being Maria Sharapova, who tweeted that Phil Knight, no screen, no need, the only one taking in history. And I thought that was really kind of apropos, that a lot of the Nike athletes were like not even surprised. And I think that says something about Phil Knight, his business acumen.
And part of his character.
100%.
Yeah.
What he means to those people. And so, from a business standpoint, not only seeing the risk payoff, but also see that, like, you can have fun while you're doing this, right?
You have to enjoy the process.
And the ride.
Yeah. You can't just be focused on the end result.
And develop meaningful relationships.
Yes.
Like he's obviously developed with a lot of these athletes that the company has invested in. So, from my standpoint, my hot topic of the week, big point here, LeBron really put in the work, the sacrifice, the time that other people would be unwilling to put in, and achieved greatness. It's no different than what Phil Knight did with Nike. He did the things that nobody was willing to do. I can't say it enough, I have no financial interest in you buying Shoe Dog, but if you like to read and you're interested about like improbable odds in business and growth and things like that, Shoe Dog is a must read.
I think you gifted me that book.
I did.
Yes.
It's a must read. I have other suggestions for our listeners, but that's a definite must read, and no different than LeBron for 20, 30 years when he was starting Nike. Phil Knight did things consistently over and over again.
Commitment.
Refused to say no when every door closed, found ways to navigate around those doors closing, and to get somewhere by consistently fighting to get to his goals. And so I think probably, I'm guessing here, but there's a lot of each other that they see in each other, and that kind of adds to the professional relationship that they have.
Absolutely.
But just a neat story all around. Kudos to LeBron for the time and the work that he put in to succeed, and to Nike and Phil Knight for taking the risk on him that's clearly paid off for the company.
Absolutely. Well, I enjoyed the Super Bowl last weekend. It was a great game. The one thing I really enjoyed about it, though, was the Kelce brothers. First time in NFL history, you have two brothers facing off against each other. The story with the mom for the week, she had her moment in the sun.
Right.
That was great. I was a little disappointed she didn't get to flip the coin. She didn't have to sit next to Roger for the game.
Like I told you earlier, worst part.
worst part of the week for her, I assume.
Who would want to sit by Roger Goodell? I mean, anyone?
But the thing I enjoyed watching the Kelce brothers, and they also too have a podcast called New Heights, which I encourage people to check out. It's a great podcast. They talk about a lot of different topics on there, but there was an interview or a part where they were talking about the sibling rivalry they had as kids. And, two brothers close in age, extremely competitive. When they were coming up, it was always who could outdo the other one. And the thing I thought about, I have a brother as well, and I have a cousin who recently passed away. But growing up in that environment, having that competition around you, and how important competition is to success. They're kind of the opposite sides of the coin of each other. Competition really makes us focus in on things, really motivates us. Without that competition, we get complacent a lot of times.
Yep.
And a lot of people overlook the importance of competition and how healthy that is for business development and things of that nature. And, tying it back into the Nike thing, before LeBron, there was a Michael.
Yeah.
And, Michael Jordan was one of the most uber competitive athletes out there. And there's lots of documentaries and stories about him, how early he would get up and get to practice. If the next best guy was practicing at 6 o'clock in the off season, he was at 4 o'clock. He's always doing one more rep than the next guy to stay ahead of that next guy. And that's kind of, with the Kelsey brothers and the competition and seeing them both rise to success like that and having that competitive environment, it's a key to success in business and anything else in your life, whether you're competing against yourself or other people or other businesses. When that tiger is chasing you, you run faster. It's just the way it works. So if you can kind of harness those kinds of things and keep those things in your environment, it really propel you past some of those cognitive blind spots we have where we limit ourselves a lot of times.
Yeah. And I I actually had mentioned to you earlier, I thought as we were preparing for the show, I thought I had flipped a video of the Kelsey brothers on their podcast talking about the mom over to you and some other close friends of mine on Instagram. And I saw it kind of like from a different angle, which was like how complex that relationship is. Like how rare is it for two brothers who clearly love each other playing against each other in the Super Bowl, and then like excited for the mom and the dad, your parents, to have that experience, but then like one of them's completely excited, one of them's completely devastated, but both empathizing and
empathy
wanting
and joy at the same time,
and the same like gumbo pot.
Yes.
And so watching them both cry in that clip on their podcast talking about the mom. I actually saw a lot in Travis, who won the Super Bowl as tight end with the Chiefs, empathy for his brother and his tears, having no regard. His brother kind of just disregarded his feelings about losing and was more just excited for.
Well, as he said, it was tears of joy after he lost the Super Bowl.
Right.
It was a weird experience for him.
Right. But it almost felt like you may have taken it differently. I saw Travis having empathy for his brother, basically. Like, wow, he loves me so much that he's like excited for me that I won and excited for our parents, even though he's devastated that his team lost.
Yes. But that was the third item on his list as far as emotions and feelings, it seemed.
Right. Yeah. Which is crazy because I can't even these guys at that level work so hard, and the competition in the NFL is as stiff as it gets. Right. And so to get to that point and then also have that mix of emotions amongst your parents, your brother, I can't imagine it. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, that was an interesting take on it. And moving forward with our podcast, as we get people in here, I'd like to talk to them about competition and how either competitors in their market or whatnot, how that's affected where they are today and driven them as far as their success.
Yeah,
and how that element has played into their lives.
Yeah, and we know. From our business, right? We're in a service profession, so people can hire lawyers as they see fit. They can fire them as they see fit. So if we're not providing an excellent service experience and the top level legal services, then we're losing. And candidly, I know being involved in a lot of marketing meetings for you on the estate practice stuff and what we're doing in our online advertising and things like that, which we're not going to get into because we don't want our competitors to know. And also the stuff that we're doing in our injury practice and our plans and development and that our competition makes us better. And
absolutely.
It is making us makes us re-review what we're doing from a marketing perspective, what we're spending money on and allocating resources to evolve with the market and the people that we're competing against.
Yeah, we have to compete in the business side of what we do, and then also when we put the tie on and go in the courtroom, we're in an adversarial service business.
Right.
We're competing against the other side. And I don't know about you, but I much prefer to go against other attorneys who are really good attorneys.
Absolutely.
They make me up my game, and the competition in the courtroom makes us better lawyers.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people get that.
No.
It's a common misconception about the practice, right? You and I talk about this all the time, which is either we have to be treating our opposing counsel like dirt if we're going to be good lawyers, or we want to be going against a bad lawyer. I kind of find, generally speaking, well, I know for the first one that is untrue. Typically, we're going to achieve much better results for our clients, whether it's in an estate or an injury case, if we have a good relationship with our opposing counsel. It's going to streamline issues. It's going to foster trust in our professional working relationship on that case and get the case closer to resolution either settlement or trial quicker.
It's going to save time and money for the client.
Absolutely. And that's what's always important, is what's in the best interest of the client. And anyways, the show is going to be exciting. We're going to have a lot of great guests for our audience, a lot of cool things as the show grows and progresses. This has been your hosts, David Vicknair and Brad Scott. Thank you all for listening, and we're looking forward to bringing you along this journey.
See y'all next time.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.